Good morning, ladies. My name is Rebekah Weinrich, and I'm going to be sharing about figs. So, for those of you that attended the retreat, Alexis mentioned fig leaves, and that kind of spurred in my heart, hey, I need to share more with these ladies about why that was a bad idea, but then also other ways that figs kind of fit into the redemptive story. But first I want to share a resource. So Blue Letter Bible, yeah, there we go. Blue Letter Bible has an original language database. And so if you're doing a word study, you could do fig, but you could also do a certain Hebrew word for fig. If you really want to do like a more concentrated word study, that's the way to go. So I just typed in fig, and the first one is, of course, Genesis 3:7, which talks about Adam and Eve sewing fig leaves together to cover themselves. So then I'm sorry it's not more clear, but you would click on that, and then it would show the passage. And then if you click on the actual verse, it will show the Hebrew. And then every word, what the Hebrew is for the verse. So you would click on the reference. So it would be Genesis 3:7 in this case, in case you're following along. It's got the Hebrew on there. And then every word, so then you would go down to fig or whatever word you're doing. It's H8384. And so you would click on that, and then it's the word Tayan. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I know there's a couple ladies out there that would probably enjoy digging in that way. So figs are a very interesting plant. And so, of course, we know fig Newtons. That's probably the only interaction I've had with figs. But did you happen to know that the sap of the fig tree has stuff in it that if it touches your skin and then your skin is exposed to the sun, you get these horrible blisters on your body? And so picture Adam and Eve making underwear out of this stuff. But don't we do that when we're trying to do things our way and we're trying to fix things our way? Don't we injure ourselves the same way? So, you can do an awesome study about that kind of fig tree. There's a lot of references out there. But in the Middle East, I believe still today, there are two types of fig trees. And so I want to talk about the other one too. It's only mentioned one time in the Bible as far as I know, and that's the sycamore fig tree. I'm sure some of you have a song from Sunday school going through your head right now. And so you've probably thought of Zacchaeus, the wee little man, climbing this European American sycamore tree. But he was in Israel, and so he would have climbed a Middle Eastern, thank you, my lighting assistant here, a Middle Eastern sycamore fig tree. And Megan will post this so you'll be able to see, but on the regular fig tree, the figs are on the branches. Like if you were to go to an apple grove and pick apples, you would pick them off the smaller branches. Well, on a sycamore fig tree, they're on like the wider branches, like the trunk. So all these little dots are figs. They're smaller, they're not as sweet, they're not as juicy. But let's think about Zacchaeus for a moment here. And so what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to pause the video. I loved when Amber did that a few weeks ago. Pause the video and turn to Luke 19. We're going to look at the first, I believe it's 10 verses. Looks like 9 verses, 10 verses. The story of Zacchaeus. I know, especially if you've grown up in the church, you've heard this story, but I feel like it's worth revisiting as an adult, especially considering the context of, okay, Adam and Eve fixing stuff ourselves, right? So now that you have unpaused the video, I'll read from the Amplified Version. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through, and there was a man called Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector, a superintendent to whom others reported, and he was rich. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was, but he could not see because of the crowd, for he was short in stature. So he ran on ahead of the crowd and climbed up in a sycamore tree in order to see him, for he was about to pass through that way. When Jesus reached the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house." So Zacchaeus hurried and came down and welcomed Jesus with joy. Now, this is the part that the Sunday school song does not cover, but very important. When the people saw it, they all began muttering in discontent, "He has gone to be the guest of a man who is a notorious sinner." Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, "See, Lord, I am now giving half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anyone out of anything, I will give back 4 times as much." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this household, because he too is a spiritual son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost." So now we have Zacchaeus, who is probably not the first person you would pick to go to your church. He's a tax collector. He's rich, which means he's probably cheated people out of money. He's not very popular. He's a sinner, a notorious sinner, so that's not good. But the fact that he picks a sycamore fig tree is important. So now figs are self-pollinating, but back in Jesus's time, they required a wasp to pollinate them. So the female wasp would bore a hole into the gall, or one job that you could possibly do was poke holes into the galls, and so that the wasp could come in. She would lay her eggs, she would die, and then she would, and then the eggs would hatch, and the males would hatch first, and they would fertilize the females and create tunnels for the females, and then the females would fly out and go to another gall and lay eggs and pollinate it. And the gall is like an inside out flower, and it would pollinate and it would create the fig. And so the last part of this passage just really stood out to me, related to figs. Jesus invited himself to Zacchaeus' house, and Zacchaeus is excited, but what has to happen before his life changes? Jesus goes to his house and talks to him, and then he starts giving his money to the poor, just like the fig. It needed the wasp to go inside and pollinate it to create the fruit. And if you look at the chronology of the Bible, Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem to be crucified. So, he had to have his death in his mind there of, oh, I'm going to die for the sins of everybody, including Zacchaeus. And we all feel like Zacchaeus. I know I do. We're not the, we're not the ideal fig. We're not the biggest, juiciest, prettiest. But Jesus picked Zacchaeus, and he picks us to do his work and to further the gospel. And so I would just encourage you, ladies, when you're not feeling, when you've maybe done things your way or tried to fix things and just made a mess of them. I've done that too. or you're feeling like you're this notorious sinner that just cannot be used by Jesus in any possible way, yes, you absolutely can. So I'm going to pray for you all real quick, and then we're done. Father, thank you so much for these ladies. Thank you for the blessing they've been for me and my family, and each other. I just thank you that you choose us, that you die for us, that you bless others through us. And I thank you that we get to be your instruments. And I just pray that for those ladies out there that are just feeling useless, maybe not good enough for you, that they would just be encouraged that yes, they are good enough, and that you're going to use them in amazing ways. And I just thank you for the ways that they're going to bless others, and the ways that you're going to bless them. And I just pray all this in your name. Amen.